All right. Facebook is telling me that we are live. So as promised, I am joined today by Victor Gonzalez, the man, the myth, the legend. And I am super, super excited. A couple weeks back, we put up a poll to say, hey, what do you want us to talk about? And I think some of the options were, of course, like this one is selling value over price. One of them was the sales journey, like the sales from new lead to actual client. And then there was another one. I think it was working purchased leads. And this is what you guys chose. So if this one goes well, maybe we'll have Victor on to drop some more knowledge in a couple of weeks or months down the road when he has some more time, because he's a busy dude. So I'm pumped that he set aside time for us to chat today. Just a quick introduction for myself, since it's been a few weeks, a couple of months since I myself have done a live stream. My name is Ben Griffioen. I'm an owner of Firefly agency. I also run Insurance Boost, where we try to give tips and tricks on how to both start and grow independent P&C agencies, which is why we do fun live streams like this one here today. So Victor, I'll give you, 30 seconds, a minute. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into the actual conversation.
Yeah, my name's Victor Gonzalez. I'll try to keep it within a minute, but I've been in insurance for about 9 years now. Started my career off in State Farm for about a $12 million agency. Started off there just doing like cold calling businesses, trying to get past gatekeepers and talk to business owners, even though the agency had zero interest in actually writing commercial or business insurance. But doing that experience, I learned that they were doing that to set me up for internet leads and having easy conversations, because getting past a gatekeeper whose only job is to keep you away from a business owner is a really difficult conversation. So I learned very quickly in my insurance career that, how to talk over the phone, how to do telemarketing, how to schedule appointments, how to talk to business owners, things like that. So started off there, worked there for about a year. I worked for the largest captive agency in the country, an $83 million Allstate. At that point, I knew I wanted to open my own office at some point. So I basically wanted to learn everything from top to bottom. So I started off as an appointment setter for the financial advisor within the agency. You're talking about an $83 million book of business. So we had tons of people to work, did everything from sales, management, and ended basically building out the life and retirement department within the agency that didn't exist before I got there. So, did that over the course of 3 years, went to build out an outbound sales team for another mega agency. That was, I believe, about 20 million size book of business, built that out in 6 months. And then I opened my own agency in October of 2019. So built my agency there for about 2 years. Almost every agency I've worked for worked primarily internet leads. And so my vast experience is working outbound dialing, high output, internet leads. And so working for all these agencies and building that out kind of set me up for success for my own agency. And what I realized is that when you're first starting a business, internet leads probably isn't the greatest way to primarily fund your business to grow. It's the quick and easy way, but I wanted to figure out a way to build my own business. So I started learning how to do my own marketing and building my own circle of influence, things like that. And so here we are today. Sold my agency in December of last year. And now I own a marketing agency, starting to build a life insurance agency. And I'm happy to be here on this call today, teach you guys some of the things that I've learned over the years.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And by the way, so for those who are watching, I will say there's a little bit of a lag between what you're seeing on Facebook and what Victor, we're using Click Meeting. So we're probably about 10 seconds ahead. But before this call, Victor and I had a brief chat, and he pretty much said, look, I love coaching. I love answering questions. So if you have any questions, please jot them down in the Facebook chat, and I am monitoring that. And so I can pass it along to Victor, because I believe I'm pretty good at, doing phone calls. Like in college, I worked at call centers. And then before I straight up joined, have helped to grow Firefly, I would cold call businesses, right? And then I would meet with commercial clients, specifically contractors, auto repair, and restaurants. And so this is, I think, between Victor, who amazingly has you built your agency off of purchased leads, which you say it's quick and easy. I think that's got to be one of you've got to have gumption to make it work with internet leads. And I know agencies who have just made huge agencies using internet leads, but it's not necessarily like a magic bullet, right? You've got to work those things. So I think you're super qualified to talk about selling value over just price. And then based on some of my experiences with commercial, I'll chime in a couple items, but I want to give the floor mainly to you because I think you have a ton to share here. And one last thing before we dive in, I'm just curious to see who's on the call. And so in the Facebook comments below, if you could just tell us where you're joining from, and that way I can see your name and what state you're joining from. And then just as a shout out to Victor, if you could drop a like or any emotion really, but preferably the like or love, the care button, not the angry button, none of that garbage. Okay.
No.
But if you want to drop a like for the video, that'd be awesome. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. So we have a couple things to take care of. Victor, what is the first tip that you'd like to share with us on selling value over price?
Yeah, and just to kind of preface this, I have 4 points that we're gonna go through. None of them are really life-changing or anything that's kind of breaking the barrier. There are things that you guys should know, but a lot of people stray away from. So the first thing that I would say is that people value the person that they're talking to, right? They don't care about the company that you work for. They don't care about the carrier that they're with unless they've had a bad experience, right? Yep. But at the end of the day, people are going to purchase from you if you do a good job of building trust, rapport, and doing what's right by the client. And so the first tip I have is make sure that the people that you're talking to and that that you're working with, these leads, one, that you understand where they're being sourced from. I think that plays a huge role, right? So you should always understand where your leads are coming from. If it's an internet lead, you should know how they're sourced, how they got to your inbox. These are things that people don't really think about. If they're a referral, who's the person that's referring you? Are you speaking highly of that person and thanking them for being referred? But people value who they're working with. So make sure that you have that at the forefront of every conversation that you go into, that it's not about, the carrier that you're putting them through and trying to talk highly about the carrier. It has to be a to B relationship between you and the consumer.
Yeah,
that's the first step.
Well, I think that's huge. Even the idea of knowing like where the leads are sourced from. Like I've never even, granted, I don't buy that many leads. That's not something that when I have spoken to lead companies, they don't like proudly say, yeah, this is how we generate our leads. It's like, yeah, we have a call center and, we call these leads and we've got them, we pass them on to you. So I think the idea of having all the information, so that journey right from the beginning, even before they get to you, where are they coming from? And then what are their expectations? So as an agent, how are you interrupting their day? And like, what are their expectations? I think that's awesome. That's really great.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, man, just the way that these, like if you're purchasing leads, they're sourced so many different ways. You have long form leads where people are manually entering 7, 12, 15, 20 pieces of information or more. So there's really high intent behind it. Some of these lead vendors are doing short form from Facebook where it's kind of just scraping your Facebook page and taking whatever data is on there and passing it along. And so some of that information might not be accurate. So if you ever purchased leads before and heard someone say, oh, that's not, my email anymore, or that's not the right information, or I didn't really fill this out, they might not be lying. Doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't click the button to request a quote. But if their information is being scraped and it's inaccurate because they never updated the Facebook profile and that's how the lead's being generated, it's a completely different conversation you need to have with that lead. Same thing with if you're, being sent a referral. If you're being sent a referral, then they're expecting your phone call and it's a completely different conversation than an internet lead. So, one of the things I teach, and this is a story for a different day, and we could probably do a training on this in the future, like how to optimize internet leads, but knowing exactly how they're being sourced is super important to the way that you conduct your conversation with that client moving forward.
Yeah. And that totally makes sense, right? Like, because if it's, and I don't need to belabor the point. that like your example is a perfect one, right? You get a referral from a mortgage broker, you have time to build rapport. You can talk about your background. If it's an internet lead, you cut to the chase. Like you get through it. So I think that is a really, really great tip. So I have 2 tips, but I'll share one now, and then I'll pass the baton back to you, Victor. So this sort of goes in line with what Victor was talking about as far as like people value people, and also like knowing who you're contacting. And to me, it's like knowing the prospect. Okay. So especially in commercial insurance, again, I didn't sell as much personal lines, But one thing that was really important to me was setting the rules of the game at the beginning of the relationship. Okay. So there is oftentimes an assumption that if you beat price, you're going to earn the business. Okay. But I was always really big on asking, like, there were several questions that I would ask, right? The first one is, what are you looking for in an insurance agent? Okay. And just based on that, people would say, like, well, I'm looking for the best price. I'm looking for someone who's independent. I want to shop around. Right. And so that would be really indicative of what they're looking for. A really important question. So this is for any of the commercial agents who are getting into it, would be, if I go through the effort and I put together a proposal, okay, and I'm able to find gaps in your current coverage, or find you places to save on your premium. If your current agent goes and matches what I do, how would you feel about that? And if, or better said, if they go and match what you do, what would you do in that case? And if the client or prospect responds, oh, I would give the business to them, right? Game over, not worth working with this person, right? Because I'm not going to be able to earn it. If I can't find gaps in your coverage and show you how I'm a better agent, you're paying somebody else for my work. All right. And I would sometimes have those conversations, but other times if an agent is like, well, of course not, I wouldn't give them business. They should have done that in the first place. Then I know, okay, I can earn this guy's business or this gal's business. And so setting the expectation right out of the gate off of what does that prospect want? And that way, can I earn the business and what do I need to do to earn the business?
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, I think you'd be surprised at some of the responses you'll get from leads when you have that conversation. A lot of people do think it is price-based, and a lot of times it's not. Sometimes they have really, really bad experiences with an agent or a company. Maybe they're not getting calls back, whatever the case may be. I look at it, when you have that conversation, you set those expectations, you're doing a lot of discovery with those questions that you wouldn't have got otherwise. And that's going to guide how your future conversation is going to go, right? Yep. Where it's not going to be as transactional, and you're able to transition into a deeper conversation that's geared towards whatever their pain point is. So I like that a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I feel like super satisfied. If Victor gives me a shout out, I'm pleased with that. All right. So what was your next tip to share with us, Victor?
Yeah. When you guys are pitching, the price should never have an emphasis over the coverages that you're offering. And so what I mean by that is, like, you shouldn't really be talking about price at all outside of when you tell them what the price is and you immediately go into asking for the sale. And the reason for that is because when you start mentioning price, you're making the conversation about price, right? And the whole point is to have a conversation about value. So the value you have is in yourself, in being able to build rapport, being able to build trust, and it's in the coverages that you're offering that are better than what they currently have. And so, if you go in and you see that, you've offered better coverages, you've had a great conversation, and then you get to the point where the quote spits out a price and you give them the price and it's higher than what they're paying. If you make a big deal out of it with your tonality and mentioning it multiple times, they're going to have an issue with it. And it's going to become a price conversation as opposed to a coverage conversation and a trust conversation, right? People do business with people they like, know, and trust. And so that's why it's important to build that, but also the coverages that you're keeping. Because it really wouldn't make any sense for someone to have the same exact coverages and pay more just because they get you, right? You should be giving them better coverages. You should be giving them a better policy, and you should be selling the value of why the better coverages and you is better than what they currently have. And so if you pair that with what Ben said earlier of being able to discover, some of the pain points and where their head is at in the conversation, you shouldn't have an issue with selling any policy at any price point, really, unless it's just absurdly overpriced. Then, you can't win them all.
Yeah. No, and I think you're totally hitting the nail on the head on this one. I think, like, you obviously need to disclose price, and say, like, well, here's that. And if it happens to be lower, all the better. Like, if you can do better coverage and better price, if you can't make that sale, either you never had a prayer with that prospect or you're a really bad salesperson.
And just to tap in, it's okay if you're a bad salesperson. You just have to have self-awareness and go get the help you need.
Yeah, that's right. And it can be overcome. And to be clear, like, you won't win them all, but if you have better coverage and better price, you should be in really great shape most of the time. If you have better coverage, that's when you can hopefully use the sales tactics to say, here's why it's worth it, right? Of course, I'm going to be more expensive, right? I found gaps that this person had. And my dad, who was in insurance, like an active agent way longer than I ever was, he would always talk about, look, when people have a claim, they never bring up the premium when there's a claim, right? Like they want to have the coverage. And so you want to have the policy in place to say, when there's a claim and you come to me, you're going to have a far better chance of being covered than with the policy you have right now. And that's why I'm worth it, right? Is to actually get the coverage that you need for your business or for your home or for your life, whatever the case may be. But I think that is a great tip. I really love that one. All right. What else you got?
All right. So the third one I have is coverages should be explained in the most basic terms. Insurance agents have a really bad habit of talking in insurance lingo, right? Make it super, super easy for the consumer to understand. They don't speak our language. They're not licensed in what we do. And it's very easy to lose people. And so one of the things I like to train on is like first call closing and closing business on the first call. And it's super simple. It's asking for the sale 3 times on the first call. And the reason why you do it is because you're going to run into 2 objections that the prospect has that you have to overcome satisfactorily. And the key word there that a lot of people miss is satisfactorily. Anyone can overcome an objection, but if you're not doing it in a way that the client understands and comprehends, like fully comprehends, you're not going to be able to close that business. And so being able to speak in basic terms that they understand, instead of saying, bodily injury, talk about liability and give examples, right? Like if you get into an accident and you break your arm or you break another person's arm, this is how it's going to work, A, B, C, right? And you have to lay it out in a way that they understand. You're going to have a significantly higher chance of closing that business than if you just talk in insurance lingo and just try to get past the talk path and get to the sale. You're not going to win business that way. So that's the third tip. Make sure that you're speaking
that is
super basic.
Yeah, and that's a great example. And what's difficult is the longer you're in insurance, and the more you understand, the harder it is for you to remember how little you knew about insurance before you were in the industry, right? So like I remember one time, and this is me, right? But I remember talking to this is a personal lines client, and I was like, look, I'm giving you 200, 250, 500 for less than this guy's giving you 100, 300, and like immediately was like, worst sales pitch ever. That was the dumbest thing to say. Whereas you talk about like the emotion where you could say, look, in the event of an accident, okay, with hospital bills and stuff, this one covers you for more than twice than what your current policy takes care of. And then in the event that the other person hits you and they don't have insurance, the underinsured and uninsured, you're covered, baby. You're in good shape, right? And so you can put it in terms that they can totally understand. That can be difficult. And I would say, honestly, it's harder for the more seasoned agents if you haven't prepared for it, right? If you're not careful, you're going to be talking to clients the same way you talk to underwriters or marketing reps, and you're absolutely right. It'll lose you business. So that's a great one too, man. Victor, you're on fire, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's just very easy to get into a flow, right? Like when you're high output, high outbound, it's very easy to get into a flow and repeat the same talk path and talk tracks that you have built out that you're used to taking someone from A to Z. And I think when you get into that flow, you start missing a lot of the little things that make differences. Being able to pick up on what people are saying, being able to explain things, right? We miss some of those triggers and kind of key indicators from the consumer that they might be giving off that we're not picking up because we're just not intentionally listening because we're in a flow. And so being able to engage them and talking in simple terms just makes the whole conversation a lot easier. And it's also going to make it a lot more interesting for you because it makes you intentionally like pay attention to what you're saying instead of getting stuck in that flow. And it creates dialogue back and forth. Obviously, the more you could get the consumer to talk, the better you're going to be in a position to sell a policy. If you're doing the majority of talking on, during a pitch and during a quote, you're going to be in a really, really tough position trying to sell. You want people to talk. You want the consumer to talk more than you are.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a great tip as well. All right. So I think we have 2 more. I think Victor has 1 more. And then I also have another little selling value item. Before I do, I just two things for those of you who are watching. First, if you are getting any value out of this conversation, please type value in the comments below, or even like the fire emoji. I could go for that. The second thing is, just as a reminder, if you have any questions for Victor or for myself, you can type them in the comments and I will relay them to Victor. By the way, Victor, you had, so William, that's my dad, Bill Griffioen, he said, you have it, like the it factor. You can tell you're a sharp guy. No surprise there. And then Amy Remigio, she posted and was like, hey, Victor. And so I don't know if you've had a conversation with her, but she sends her regards. And then you
Hey,
got
Amy.
Amy and Julie are both typing value, so they're getting something out of this. So you're doing a
Awesome.
great job. So
Thank you.
let's hit us with your last one. What's the other item to sell value instead of just price?
Yeah, so this is probably my favorite one, and this is what I call the client journey. Okay, and so this is how you're going to create long-lasting clients that are longer than 6 months policies or 1 year policy. These are the people that are going to be with you for 5, 10, 15 years. And so the client journey is super, super important. And so what that is I go into a conversation not just explaining, what we could do for you now, but how we're going to help you in the next 3 to 5 years, how we're going to build out a policy for you that's going to save you money over the next 3 to 5 years, how we're going to service you. And we explain that entire journey. So one example I like to use is like, I had one of my first clients, super young client, probably about 20, 21 years old, had a bunch of accidents on his driving history, typical 21-year-old with a fast car, has some money, getting into a bunch of speeding tickets, paying about $800 a month on car insurance.
Oh.
Ridiculous for a 21-year-old, right? I'm also in Florida, so we're just naturally more expensive. And when you're under 25, super expensive.
Yeah.
So, I go into the client journey with him and explain to him, hey, you're at state minimum. Guys, if you're in Florida, then you understand state minimum is 0 liability in Florida, right? So this guy had no liability coverage. And he's already being a dangerous driver, speeding all over the place. So I take him through the journey and say, hey, listen, if this is going to work between you and I, this is going to be a process that's going to last longer than from now till 6 months, right? Your 6-month auto policy. And so this is what we're going to do for you. I have to do my part. You have to do your part. Currently, anyone who's under $25,000 in liability insurance in the state of Florida is considered non-standard. If you're at $25,000 and $50,000 in liability, you are considered standard coverage. Anything over $100,000 in coverage, you're considered preferred, right? My goal for you is to get you into preferred. The way insurance works, we look at your credit score, we look at your age, we look at your homeowner status or your renter, we look at your driving history, credit score, like all this stuff. That's how a premium is created. Obviously, you have stuff on your history. So, the fact that you're under 25, you're considered a youthful driver in the state of Florida. You have less than 25,000 in coverage, so you're considered non-standard. You have all these negative remarks that are spiking up your premium. So in order for us to get you into a preferred premium, which is going to significantly decrease the amount that you're paying, we need to do a lot of steps together. I need to get you into standard coverage. So the first thing we're doing, we're going to quote you at $25,000 because I know you can't afford anything more than that, right? My goal is not to drive your premium up, it's to drive it down. And so I want you to spend less on insurance, but I also want you to get more in coverage. And so we're going to put you at $25,000, and with the company that we have, obviously we're giving you $25,000 more in liability coverage than you already have, right? Because you have 0, you have nothing. You get into an accident, you hurt someone, you're done. And so we're giving you $25,000, so we're giving you more coverage. But 6 months from now, we're going to reshop you. And so on my end, my job is to reshop you and to make sure that we get your price down, right? Your job is to stay out of accidents, stay out of tickets, stay out of trouble, and pay your bill on time. If you do those things, when we reshop you in 6 months from now, you're going to get standard coverages when we reshop you as opposed to non-standard. That in itself, as long as you don't have any accidents or tickets, is going to drive your premium down. So you call me in 6 months, we're paying, at $25,000 in liability and these, your deductibles, you're coming in the same exact price that you're already paying. So you got to bite the bullet for another 6 months. The good thing is you're not paying more than you were before. It's the same exact thing, but you're having better coverages. 6 months from now, you're going to reach out. We're going to get your price down. What the exact price is, I don't know, but I know for a fact, if you do everything I'm asking you to do and I hold my end of the bargain, your price is going to go down. He's like, okay. After that, we'll move you into preferred and so on and so forth until we eventually get you there, as long as there's no accidents and tickets on your end. So now I've engaged him that he also has to take part in this journey. Yeah. It's not just a me thing, it's a both of us. I'm doing my job as an agent by explaining how it works and getting him the right coverages, and he has to hold his end of the bargain of staying out of trouble and not getting tickets, accidents, things like that. 6 months from now, he reaches out to me he's like, hey, Victor, don't know if you remember me, but you told me to reach out to you at my renewal. Just got my renewal. Let's do it. Okay. We get it. Shop him at renewal. Price cuts in half. He's at $400 a month. $400 a month is still super freaking expensive.
Yeah.
But he was just absolutely like mind blown that his price decreased that much because I took the time to explain to him how insurance works. And so now I'm explaining to him, hey, we need to get you to, there's benchmarks. When you stay with the same company, you get 1 year, you get a discount for being with the same company, 3 years, 5 years, right? So we want you to have that, but first we have to get your coverages up. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep you with the same company so we can get you to the 1 year mark so you can get that discount. And we're also going to raise your coverages to 100, 300. So now we're getting you from standard into preferred. So yeah, now your insurance went down to 400, but we're going to bump you up to 600, which is still saving you 200 a month. But now we're taking that next step to save you even more. And he's like, dude, let's do it. I don't even care. With you for life. He was happy enough that we saved him all the money and I kept my end of the bargain. But now he's also starting to refer me all his friends, all his family, and everyone that comes with it, right? That's just like the icing on the cake. But that's the client journey, guys. Like it's being able to explain how you're going to help someone. Too many times insurance agents, they're so transactional. It's just trying to get the next sale and you're not really creating lifelong clients. And so that's how you do that. You have to explain to them like, what's in it for you and me being in a relationship for the next 3 to 5 years? How are you going to help me bring my price down? How are you going to help me get better coverages? How are you going to protect me and my vehicle? How, like all these different variables, what are things that I can, that you can teach me that's going to help me bring my price down even further? Like, did you know you'll get a discount when you become a homeowner? If you didn't know that, cool. When you own your home, make sure you reach out to me. We'll get you a discount on the home and the auto. You'll get a discount for that. Oh, I didn't know that. Do you have a renter's policy? No. Cool. It only costs X amount of dollars. It's going to give you a discount. It's going to get you coverages for X, Y, and Z. In some situations, it could help you on your auto with the renters. Like there's so many different variables and insurance is so open, but we have to do a better job of explaining to people all the different situations and how we're going to help them. And so that's what the client journey is. It's going deeper into the conversation and really looking at more than just today's sale, right? How am I going to help you 3 years from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And if you can relay that information to the client, they'll be with you forever, right? You're making it a partnership. And especially when you put some homework on them, it just makes it very easy for them to understand and to partake in it and to be very intentional. And, I probably kept that kid out of a bunch of accidents and tickets because he cares more about saving money than he does about, speeding around the neighborhood. So,
dude, that's really interesting. So, because even as you're talking, so full disclosure, I never really wrote people that had state minimum limits, or in Florida, there is no state minimum, right? I mean, you could
zero liability, tenant property damage.
Yeah, it's insane. And so like in Ohio, it's 2550, at least it was when I was writing. And I never really wrote much on state minimums, but I did think about commercial. And even the idea of saying like, well, where do you want, like the reason you have insurance, it's kind of a necessary evil, but it's because for most business owners, the business is like their baby, right? And so to say, look, the reason you have this policy is because you're trying to grow this thing. And the last thing you want is for like a products and completed ops claim to totally bankrupt your business and put you out. Right. And the problem with the cheap policies is there could be a claim that could literally destroy the business. Right. One day you're in business, the next day you're out. And I'm going to be the type of agent that helps you get to where you want to be in 3 years. Or another example is like you have loss requirements, right? That an insurance company will come in, they'll do like an inspection on the commercial property and say, hey, like paint needs to be redone here. You've got to update these items. And to use that client journey to say, look, it's a pain, but where do you want to be in 3 years? Right? I'm trying to help you get so you can focus on your business, prevent claims from ever slowing you down. And if there is a claim, to make sure that it's paid and you're right back into business and growing this thing. So I think doing the client journey, I think it's applicable to quite a bit in insurance. You just have to figure out how would it apply to your clientele, right? Your demographic, your niche in insurance, and then make it so that it totally works. That's awesome. I like that. So I have one other thing. We're coming up on about half an hour, so we're going to call it after this, but I'll keep it brief. Because one of the ways that I made most of my sales as an agent, again, I have to give credit to my dad on this one, but it's asking about liability. Okay. And most people don't really know what liability entails, but nobody, almost, better said, almost nobody knows why the heck they have the limit that they have. And so when I would talk to people, and this works for homeowner, like for personal lines and for commercial lines. But when you're talking to somebody, if you can get their deck pages or even an information gathering, you say, hey, Victor, what limit of liability do you have on your autos? 100, 300, 100. Perfect. How did you arrive at that limit? Almost everybody says, oh, my agent told me that's what it should be. Say, great. How did he or she come to that limit? It's like, I have no idea, right? Almost no client, including on commercial lines, when you ask, why is your limit 1 million, 2 million, right? And it's because it's the industry standard. They have no idea why. And so that opens up kind of like the client journey, right? It opens up the conversation to say, look, here's why you have insurance. And like, let's use homeowners as an example. If you get the replacement cost wrong, coverage A wrong, or your deductible is higher than expected, worst case scenario, you lose the house, right? And that's terrible. That would totally destroy anybody's life. If you get the limit of liability wrong, worst case scenario, you lose everything. You can lose absolutely everything, that you'd have to, you could lose it to a claim. So having the conversation on the limit of liability, asking how they came to that limit. And then when they don't know, as the agent, you can explain, well, here is how liability insurance works. Ideally, here's where you want your liability to be based on what I've just told you. Like, I used to use an equation and say, here's the kind of the equation that you could use. Based on this, what does your limit need to be? And then they would tell me, 100, 300. I had a ton of people come back and say, it should be probably 500,000, right? It's like, sweet. And now I'm not competing apples to apples anymore. I'm competing knowing that I'm an agent who can explain things, like you said, in their language. And that when I make the sale, it's like, price is important, but like when people would get the limit of liability conversation, I knew I got a really good shot at landing this one. So so those are our 6 tips for the day. Victor, do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No. If you guys don't have me as friends on Facebook, feel free to reach out to me. And if you have any questions or maybe some situations that you want some help on, I'm an open book and I'm willing to help anyone out. So feel free to reach out.
And I think I would concur with that. So likewise, I would say same thing. If there's anything I can help with, I would say that my strengths are more like agency based. How do you get carrier appointments? How do you grow an agency? Overall things. Victor's an absolute stud, as you've already heard from, sales processes and, in this case, how to sell value over price, the life cycle of a lead. And he is fantastic. So if you haven't already, connect with this guy here on Facebook. You won't regret it. He's got good posts even on his personal page. Victor, on behalf of all the agents here at Insurance Boost, thank you so much, dude. And we'll have to have you on here again. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Have a great Wednesday. And we'll do another live stream here before long. Take care.
See you guys.